Hi, today we're going to talk about 10 commandments to get better sound. Number 1, determine your intentions and your environment. Is this going to be a dedicated listening room? Or is this going to be a shared space, such as a living room or a media room? Is this going to be a home office? In other words, being clear about the kind of room this is going to be down the road will help you to know whether you're going to just be doing some audio triage right now to improve the sound a little bit, or whether it's going to mean you're going to sort of dedicate yourself to upping your game and doing what you need to do to make the sound really, really great. Commandment number 2. Your most important component is your room. Stop thinking about your gear. Stop thinking about even speakers. The first thing to consider and to get right is the room. Great systems can sound really mediocre in a bad room, and really mediocre systems can sound great in a well set up and well thought through room acoustically. So keep the room in mind. Commandment number 3, room dimensions. What is best for listening? Now, there are many sources out there about the kinds of dimensions an ideal listening room should have. All rooms resonate. All rooms have echo. All rooms will repeat and create certain dips and peaks in the sound, right? Think about singing in the shower. The key is to avoid rooms that are square because the sound really bounces around a lot in a square room. And the second thing is to try to avoid rooms that are going to resonate or echo too intensely. Seek out rooms that have a ceiling height of 9 feet or higher. That's often not easy to find, but if you have a ceiling that's 9 feet in your house, think about that room as ideal for a dedicated listening room. Commandment number 4. There are 3 primary goals to improving the sound of a listening room. The first and most fundamental one is get the bass right. The second one is tightening the center image. And the third one is to tame brightness and echoes. The second and the third here are interrelated in terms of the kinds of solutions you'll throw at it, but let's talk about how to achieve these goals. Commandment number 5. What to put on the music menu. Now, you're going to be listening to music when you do these tests, so create a playlist and prepare to take some notes. You want to find songs that are well recorded, that contain acoustic instruments, preferably not too many. You want to have tracks that have a fair amount of bass, vocals, and dynamics which go from loud to soft, and you want these tracks to have some energy. You're going to want these tracks to do all of these different things in the first 30 seconds or so, because you're going to want to play them over and over again, and you want all of that good stuff to be happening in the first 30 seconds of the music. Now, Paul McGowan of PS Audio has a really great list of tracks that he uses when he's evaluating systems, and it's known as Paul's Picks, and you can find that out on the web pretty easily, and there are lots of other lists out there. Commandment number 6. Set the table. In other words, get your room ready. You're going to be listening in a triangular arrangement. You're going to have the speakers in front of you. They're going to be a certain distance apart, let's say 6 feet. And then you want to be about 6 feet away from the tweeter of either of those speakers, and possibly even a little bit more. So an equilateral triangle, or a triangle in which your distance from the speakers is a little bit further than the speakers are from one another. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you get the speakers pulled off of the wall. In other words, you want the back of the speakers to be about 3 feet or so, 30 inches at least, from the back wall. This is not only going to keep them from being too boomy in the bass, but it's going to give them a chance to project a deeper and richer sonic image, something that has more depth to it, more layers from front to back. Your chair or your listening couch position needs to be set up vertically so that your ears are just a couple inches below where the tweeters are. So if you're sitting in your listening chair, you want those tweeters to sort of fire past you over your shoulders and a little bit above your ears. That's probably going to give you the best chance of having a nice balance between highs, mid-range, and low frequencies. The other thing you want to do is you want to take some notes about what's changing so you can go back and keep track of that later. Commandment 7, next steps. play with the position of the speakers first. In this stage, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to listen, and then you're going to move the speakers a couple inches closer to you, to your listening chair, and away from the wall behind it. Then listen again. See how that changes the balance between the bass and the mid-range and the treble. See how it changes the image, the focus of the sonic image in the center and the echoes you hear or you don't hear. Listen for the differences and try to take notes about it. After this, you can try moving the speakers further apart. In other words, if the speakers start at 6 feet apart, move them to 6.5 feet, move them to 6 3/4. Again, listening in between each change and taking notes on the changes that you find. Commandment number 8, bass is 2/3 of the battle. Look, bass is just the hardest thing to get right in setting up audio, and it is the foundation of any further change you're going to make. So you have to get this right first. There are things you can do by moving the speakers, by listening, and the question is always going to be, after you make a change, how does the bass sound? There are different setup techniques for bass. One is called the bass hunter technique. There's another one called the master setup. And most of these setup procedures start with evaluating, how does the bass sound? Is the bass tight? Is it full? Is it clear? These are things that you have to figure out in conjunction with your room, because bass waves are big physical events, and position of the speaker, position of the listening position will bear greatly on the bass. The key is for full but detailed bass sounds, right? And a string bass is the best test of this. Commandment number 9, how is that center image? And how are the other images in the sonic field that you're listening to? Most people just love it when they can point to the singer, they can point to the trumpet, they can point to the drums, they can pick out the violin section, and it's all clear and definite in what they're listening to. What this means is that their system and their room are collaborating to give them enough direct sound. It means that the reflections or the indirect sounds are not too loud, because reflections and echoes smear the sound. They distract from your oral focus. And I'm not going to go into this now, but the way to deal with this is to position speakers carefully and the listening position carefully, and to maybe introduce some absorption or some diffusion that will help keep those reflections to a minimum. You don't want to get rid of them entirely, but you don't want them to interfere with that center image and the other images in the field. Commandment number 10, final one. Are you blinded by the bright? Are you dealing with brightness that makes you want to turn your music down? If you feel the need to turn your music down and it's not objectively that loud, chances are you're bouncing a lot of sound around your room, especially at the higher frequencies, and they're clustering up, they're cluttering up, they're forming an aural traffic jam around your ears, and it's making everything sound shrill, bright, brittle, whatever word you want to use. You can deal with this in similar ways that you dealt with imaging, by positioning of the speakers in the listening position, and by also thinking about those first reflection points along the side walls, the ceiling, and the floor. If you can tame those either with absorption or diffusion or just positioning, you will find that a lot of that brightness goes away. Thanks for listening.